Hello and welcome back to Death and Taxes. I am one half of your hosting duo, John Humphreys, and I am joined, as always, by Gene Tunny. Gene, how you doing?
Going well, thanks, John. Yeah, keen to chat about events and your bold tax policy ideas. Should be
What do you
fun.
mean events, Gene? Are you saying that something's happened in economics and politics in the last week? I don't know what you're
Oh,
talking
well,
about.
quite a lot, actually. Well, I think so. I mean, we've got some interesting new data we can talk about, and also there's the Liberal leadership spill tomorrow. Whether that actually matters, given the state of the liberals in the polling, is another matter. But it's certainly we'll see how everything shakes out tomorrow.
Yes, and good luck with that, by the way, Gene. I hope you win that leadership contest.
I don't think anyone rational would go for the Liberal Party leadership at the moment, honestly. But yeah, we can talk about that a bit later.
Indeed. So this is the podcast, the live stream from the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. That's ATA is www.taxpayers.org.au is where you can find us. We put this on every week, every Thursday at 7:30 Queensland time, 8:30 for you Southerners, and South Australian WA, you have to work at your own times. So we do this live. It is simulcast on YouTube and Facebook on the ATA's channel, on my personal X account. And I've been remiss not to mention previously, but also this goes live to LinkedIn on Gene Tunny's account. So just search Gene Tunny on LinkedIn and you'll also find it. Search John Humphreys on X and you'll find it. And ATA, the Australian Taxpayers Alliance, on Facebook and YouTube. Whichever one you're looking at it now, could I please ask you to give it a like, give it a share, and go and follow us on those platforms. It all helps the algorithm to know that this is the sort of material that needs to be seen. So please do that. Also, this is live, so we do take chats, we do take comments, questions, criticisms. Please write them in. We'll try to get to them at the end. If we get distracted, we may come to your questions or comments a bit earlier, but normally we try to leave them to the end. But yes, feel free to write in, say whatever you like. Feel free to disagree. All right, so what have we got up today? Obviously, the big news for the last couple of days has been the Liberal Party has having their latest version of their meltdown. So we have seen the coalition meltdown. That's over now. They're back together. Now we're having when we saw the Taylor versus Hastie fight, that got done. That's resolved. Now we've got this leadership spill between Susan Ley and Angus Taylor. So we'll have a bit of a chat about that. We will, of course, chat about Gene's roundup of the latest economic data, all of the stuff that you need to know. But if you're more normal than Gene and I, then you probably don't spend your time watching that data. So that's why you come to us and we help you know what you need to know, economically speaking. And of course, the big thing that ATA has put out this week is our set of tax ideas. Whoever is running the Liberals, or for that matter, whoever is running the opposition, whether that be Liberals or a different political party or One Nation or anyone else, changing the face only gets you so far. At some stage, we're going to have a real discussion about changing the policy. And one part of that is tax. So we're going to put out some tax ideas and have a chat about those. So
yeah. And if the government took them up, if the Labor government took them up, you wouldn't be unhappy about that. So would you? I mean, it's basically for anybody who wants to take up those ideas.
Oh no, that'd be great. I mean, it's whoever wants to take it up. But at the moment, I guess the context is we see this battle on the opposition side of politics, talking about which person could lead. I'd much prefer them to be talking about which policy agenda could lead. Yeah. So in the what's that saying? Be the change you want to see in the world. So instead of complaining about it, we thought we'd try to introduce some ideas into the mix, and we readily invite anybody to steal those ideas. So Susan, Pauline, Angus, Tim Wilson, who are the others? Ted O'Brien, whoever else could theoretically be a leader, Barnaby Joyce, steal our ideas. And yeah, same goes for Labor. And I guess the same goes for the Greens. They can steal the ideas too. But you're really pushing the envelope there, Gene, if you want me to be happy about that one. Right. Anyway, with that all said, let's get into Gene's roundup, the economic news of the week that you may have missed. Take it away.
Okay, we'll get through this quickly. I think the big news this week relates to, one, the new lending data out from the ABS the other day, basically showing, strong growth, particularly in home loans in over the last 3 months of last year, December quarter, around 5%, and particularly in the first home buyer segment where they're up nearly 7%, and that's interpreted quite rightly as being due to the 5% deposit scheme that kicked in on 1 October. So we're seeing, big uptake in first home buyers, big increase in loans, but a lot of that's to do. It's not necessarily more properties being sold. A lot of it's due to the property values being driven up at the aggregate level. If you look at the aggregate numbers, I mean, certainly it seems to be they're more first home buyers, but at the aggregate level, I think what we're seeing, as well as, I mean, there are more borrowers, but there's also, quite a significant increase in average loan size. So Queensland average loan size is now around 730 to 740, up from I think about 690,000 or so. So the previous quarter. So there's very strong growth in prices and values. Lots. Lending's really it really picked up last quarter, and partly that's due to that first home buyers grant. So there's both the growth in volume, the numbers, and then the growth in average value of loans that we're seeing there. Okay, we're also seeing continuation of very strong immigration based on those net permanent and long-term migration stats. It's not quite at the peak in 12 months terms, but this is the net permanent and long-term migration based on what they put on their visitor cards when they arrive in Australia. It's not quite the same thing as net overseas migration. The official figures are government quotes, which suggests that net overseas migration has fallen from the peak of around 500,000 to around a bit over 300,000 per annum. But these numbers would suggest that that net overseas migration will probably start picking up again, and we really haven't seen much of a decrease. So I think these are numbers that are really, a lot of people like Tarek Brooker and Leif Van Onselen, they're heavily focused on this, and so they're suggesting that this means that we've still got very strong immigration in Australia. Okay, the other thing I think was fascinating is just the assumptions that the RBA made in Statement of Monetary Policy that came out the end of last week, where we've got very low GDP growth over the next few years. I mean, under 2% and barely above what they'd be assuming for population growth, which means relatively flat GDP per capita. And we all know this is related to sluggish productivity. We all know the concerns around that in the Australian economy. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Matt Canavan had a really effective line of questioning Michelle Bullock, the RBA governor, at Parliament today for the estimates, or whatever it was, the hearing, the Economic Committee hearing, and it seems Michelle Bullock she was really struggling with the line of questioning, and Matt may have gone a bit far at one time when he's accused her of gaslighting the Australian public over living standards, because he was saying, well, are you saying everything's okay? Well, what about people's decline in living standards? And maybe Matt went a bit far and she pushed back on that. But he did highlight the fact that the governor and the RBA don't appear to understand what's been happening with real living standards in Australia. They couldn't answer the question of whether real living standards have recovered since the declines we've had over the last few years. And if you have a look at the data in the national accounts, which is real GDP per capita and real net national disposable income, you'll see that they're still lower than the post-COVID peak when they picked up again, and then we had the fall due to all of the inflation. This is representative of the struggles that people have had in the last few years with living standards, and this explains a lot of the frustration we see. And Matt's line of questioning of the RBA governor suggested that they may not really understand those data. So that was a bit of a concern. I thought Matt's line of questioning was incredibly effective. So, good job, Matt Canavan. Okay. Finally, the jobs data in the US turned out to be a lot better than people expected, 130,000. I mean, they're not shooting the lights out, but this has been interpreted as a bit of a win for the Trump administration. And, Trump's sort of saying how wonderful it is. And, it may mean that the Federal Reserve doesn't do any further cuts or delays cuts. And so what does that mean? That means that their dollar or our dollar may not appreciate relative to the US as much as we may have expected. So that's all from me. They're the highlights. John, anything you want to chat about regarding those figures that we've talked about?
I have to admit, I was trying to fix up the back end on my side during half of that. It did sound like Matt Canavan has been doing some of God's work, pushing back. In Parliament, did you have any? Do you have any quotable quotes from it? Like, what was the?
Oh no, well, he was
just reach out to Matt, by the way. We've invited him on the show. He's keen to come on at some stage. He couldn't tonight. There's Senate estimates on, obviously, as you're talking about.
Well, basically, he asked, why are they so defensive? Why? I mean, he was saying, look, I understand you don't want to upset the government, but why can't you answer a simple economics question about whether if the government is spending more, if it's got a structural deficit, is it contributing to higher interest rates? So he had a bit of an exchange. So it did get really.
So how did they deal with that? Like, what did they say?
Well, she started. I mean, it's this line that they're running. Well, total demand is composed of private demand and public demand, and so it depends if either of them is higher, then the aggregate's higher, and then that's what matters for aggregate demand relative to supply capacity, economy, and hence inflation. So she's trying to say it without coming out and saying, yeah, exactly, it's government spending could be contributing to higher interest rates and inflation. And then Matt goes, well, what about if he asked her, can you just say that clearly? Like he phrased his question the other way, and she says, oh, well, it depends on what happens with private demand. And he says, well, what about all else equal, ceteris paribus?
Yes, what, she didn't know about CETPAR? That was
well, she did, and then I think she basically had to concede it, but still in a way that was relatively political. I mean, look, she's got a job to do, and she obviously doesn't want to upset the government. So, I am sympathetic to her point of view, but I thought Matt's line of questioning was very good, except for the part where he accused her of gaslighting the Australian people. That may have been a bit.
I've got to say, from what you're telling me, it kind of sounds like that accusation might have some merit. It's remarkable the amount of double talk you get in politics.
I mean, maybe. Look, he's probably factually right. The issue is that then the news coverage, instead of being, well, Matt Canavan had a really effective line of questioning of Governor Michelle Bullock. The news coverage is Michelle Bullock pushes back on Matt Canavan for accusing her of gaslighting and saying, and she was offended, I can't believe that you said that. So that's the coverage. Whereas I think
I'm going to push back on you with this, Gene, because realistically, if there wasn't that coverage, there just wouldn't have been coverage. It's not like the media sit around going, oh, a well-made, nuanced economic point. Quickly, hold me the front page of the newspaper. We'll put that on the front page. No, if you don't say anything sort of salacious, crazy, intriguing, or get into a fight, the media just doesn't run it. No one knows you've said anything. So now I think he's probably done twice as good. He's got people now aware of what he said. And then if anyone pauses and listens to the context, they'll say, actually, that's a really good point. I mean, it seems like an easy thing to say. I also think some people on the right over-egg this issue, but it seems like a fairly easy thing to just say bluntly. If government spending goes up, that contributes pressure to the total amount of spending in the economy. If private spending goes up, that contributes pressure. It's not all one or all the other. It could be either. As it happens, government spending is going up. That's contributing. It's not the only thing. It's not everything. I would say it's not even the primary culprit. I'd say the primary culprit is a reserve bank, as we've discussed previously. but it doesn't seem that hard to answer that honestly, I would have thought.
Yeah, so she's sort of really getting tangled up trying to answer it. Oh, the other thing that was a bit of a bizarre exchange is, well, Matt was asking them, well, what do your forecasts mean for real wages? And then they had a discussion about whether the wage price index or the average earnings measure in the national accounts, I always forget the name of it, whether that's the best measure. So that was a bit of a bizarre discussion. And Michelle Bullock was trying to say that, well, hang on, even though the WPI hasn't been great, that's if people stay in the same job, but people, they'll change jobs and earn higher wages. But I think Matt's point, the reason we've got the WPI is to get an accurate estimate of underlying growth in real wages, because we're assuming that's the same job or the same jobs we're measuring. So, yeah, I thought that was a bit of I thought that was the RBA trying to, evade, trying to get out of a difficult issue. And, yeah, it just seemed obfuscated.
We all know that trick, right? If you know your audience doesn't understand some technical details, just dive into the technical details. That will put your audience to sleep. They won't understand the details, and they'll think, oh, you must have some really good point I don't understand. It is gaslighting. I think it was.
Yeah, maybe.
They
weren't well prepared. By the way,
can I ask you? You said before these are the was it the RBA estimates for GDP growth?
Yeah, that was statement of monetary policy. Yeah, the February statement of monetary policy.
And you said it was what 1 point? Can we chuck that back up there? Can you show me that?
Yeah, I will. Okay. So we'll go back to it. Okay. So that's the table, and Stephen Smith from Deloitte tweeted or did a LinkedIn post about this earlier or maybe Friday when it came out, and said this is a car crash for the Australian economy, right? Because you've got GDP growth on the calendar year basis only growing 1.8% this year. Next year, 1.6, 1.6, 1.6. And if populations may be growing 1.5, you're talking about maybe 0.1.
Yeah, I was about to say, for context there, the average population growth is about 0.4 a quarter. So it's about 1.5 to 1.6. So that 1.6 is basically no growth. This is, as you would well know, we've talked about this a lot. We've been roughly stagnant for about 10 years. We've been in a per capita recession for more than half of the last 5 years. This looks like we've got the foreseeable future, just still no more growth, right? Wage stagnation. Basically. Your wages don't go up, prices do. You work harder to stay still. This is not a pretty picture of the future.
Yeah, I think this is what inspired Matt's line of questioning today of Governor Bullock. And yeah, they really weren't well prepared. I was stunned. It's like, I can imagine if someone like David Gruen back in the day, when he was sort of running Macro Group in Treasury, he just would have had, he would have been able to handle it and bat it off. But yeah, Michelle Bullock was just, she was lost. It was rather,
Well, I know the people they used to have really good quality people in the Treasury back in the noughties, back in the 2000s. Gene, I know that it's probably gone downhill since then. But
that's right, John. The real stars.
The inside joke for those who are tuning in and don't know who Gene and John are: we were both former Treasury officials back in the noughties. Gene for much longer than I. I was only around for a few years, and then I escaped. But yes, it's how the mighty have fallen, I think, as I said recently in a report to Treasury, how the mighty have fallen. Anyway, so that's a good economic roundup. That leads us into, well, doesn't lead us in. I didn't know how to segue that, so I'll just not even attempt. Political roundup. What's been happening in the last week? I got to say, we all know what's been happening is this Liberal Party leadership spill, which has been, for political tragics like me, it has been, it's like watching your latest show on TV. All right, the next episode's out. All right, you wake up the next day, the next episode's out because now the John O'Doniam and James Patterson have quit the front bench. So it has been kind of fun watching. I don't know if it's particularly edifying for the people involved. And I got to say, the thing that really stood out to me, Gene, is, and I just got a message when we were talking before from a Liberal Party friend who I won't name, but I hope he actually writes in under his name soon. You know who I'm talking about, whoever's listening. Was saying, look, it's very unlikely that a internal party spill is going to be focused on policy. But it would be great if it was there was a bit of policy meat in the back and forth, because it has been totally vacuous up until now. But Gene, right, before I rant too much, what's your take on what's happened in the last week in politics?
Well, I mean, it's just the self-destruction of the Liberal Party, isn't it, really? So, yeah, look, I mean, maybe they'll change to Angus Taylor, but it's hard to know whether that will save them. Their vote among young people is in the teens.
Well, let's start with that question of, so there's a few ways we could slice this. Let's start with the question of just the pure politics watching of this. So putting aside who you'd like to win or what they should do, what do you actually think will happen just in this leadership spill? Because my card's on the table. I think it's very likely Angus Taylor wins this now. That's the people easily. I know who know more than me say that. So that's easily, you say? I
mean, easily. But what that means to the Liberal Party, I don't know. I mean, will you have people like Andrew Bragg and Susan Lee and whoever else her supporters are? Will they stay in the party, or will they try to team up with the Teals? I don't know. I mean, that's maybe they'll stay together, because what other option do they have, really? Because then it'd just be a complete destruction of the Liberal Party.
I mean, that's a more interesting question than I had appreciated until then, for a number of reasons. Firstly, Malcolm Turnbull just hinted at that recently when he went into Parliament in the same place he was back in, 2015, when he knifed Abbott. And he was raining shade on all of his former colleagues. And he was talking about the emergence of a new party. He called it a party of the centre-right. I think we all know that the word right is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. I think it's probably a party of the Turnbull centre, or whatever you'd want to call it. But he was hinting at it. He said immediately that he wouldn't start it. But if you had a bunch of people leaving the Liberals at the same time Turnbull saying that, at the same time the Teals exist, that is a potentially interesting moment if that happens. And the point of that, my first instinct was, no, they'll stick around, right? So Andrew Bragg, Maria Kovacic, I don't know how to pronounce her name, all of these people, because long-term, most people stick around because they know that the tide will turn, right? The worm will turn, things will come back, you'll have another go. And often that the new leader puts out a few crumbs for the opposite faction to try and bring the party together. But if the party stays at 20% or lower, then a lot of these people are losing their seats regardless.
Yeah.
At that point, all of the internal incentives change, right? The internal incentives used to be, I'm angry at the party, but I'll stick with them because they'll keep me elected, right? They'll keep me in Parliament. Now it'll be, the incentives are, if I stay with this party, I'm guaranteed lost. If I roll the dice on some crazy Turnbull Teal venture, I'll probably lose. But if I'm guaranteed to lose inside the party, why not roll the dice? So the internal dynamics of that has changed quite a bit. That could be very interesting to see how that plays out. I still suspect most people will just stay the course, assuming the party will bounce back. But yeah, that's who's most likely to jump if that happens. By the way, people tuning in, I've seen a bunch of new people tuning in. If you are, this is live going on YouTube, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. Now that Gene's putting it on LinkedIn, you can find us all those places. Please give it a like. Please give it a share. And also, this is live. We're taking comments, questions, criticisms. Please feel free, write in, say what we've got right, say what we've got wrong. Throw a metaphorical tomato at us, a rhetorical tomato at us, and we'll try to engage with you. But yes, having done that interruption, Gene, do you have any thoughts on who would be most likely to jump ship?
I'd say maybe someone like Andrew Bragg, just because he seems fairly, like he's very much similar. He seems very similar to the Teals. I think he's good on economic policy, but he strikes me as someone who wants to appeal to the same type of voters that the Teals do. So yeah, maybe someone like him. But I've just got
Julian Leeser, because Andrew Bragg, I believe, is number 1 on the Senate ticket, which means he's one of the few people that would survive. So the Liberals could go down to 10% and they'd still get their number 1 on their Senate ticket in. But someone like Julian Leeser is probably worried about a Teal shift. So keep an eye out for that one. Anyway, that's an interesting, I hadn't thought that, but that is an interesting question. So we both are in agreement that Angus Taylor is going to easily defeat Ley.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance that someone tries to do a Morrison and makes the case? So this is, I think, like the obvious thing to assume here is that someone like a Tim Wilson could step forward and say, I support Susan Lee, But if the spill is on, then she's obviously, because if a majority have voted to spill her, then a majority are going to vote to, not for her, for her opponent in the final vote. So he could say, I will vote against the spill, but if the spill happens, I'll put my name up. And he then convinces Susan not to run if there's a spill on. And then you could have this sort of new race. Like, how would a Tim Wilson, Angus Taylor race look?
Yeah, I can't see that happening, John, because if I were Tim Wilson, or the other name is James Patterson, even though he's in the Senate, isn't
James Patterson, he's also a supporter of Angus Taylor. So Tim Wilson is from the Susan Leigh faction. James Patterson is from the Angus Taylor faction.
But why would you run now? Because there's still 2 years until the next election. Wouldn't your best strategy be to wait for Angus Taylor to come in and then flounder, which, who knows? Who knows? He might shine, but he's had a bit of a struggle so far. And Chalmers is vicious. Mate, he's channeling Paul Keating, really. I've been, he's had
a quite funny, though.
What's this?
It's been quite funny. That's why it's so vicious. Right?
I didn't realize he had it in him. But yeah, he's really channeling Paul Keating.
But I got to say, in terms of why he would do it, firstly, you don't always get to pick when you can be leader. I don't think Angus Taylor wanted to move now. I think Taylor wanted to move like in winter or the second half of the year.
Yeah.
But as people would have told him, you don't always get to pick it. If you only move when the time is perfect, you may never get your shot. So that's one reason. The other one is, if putting yourself in Tim Wilson's shoes, the ideal scenario would be that he votes for Susan, shows his loyalty. Susan then says she backs Tim for the race. He then runs and loses by 2 votes. Then he's obviously the heir apparent. He then sits into line, is loyal for a year and a half, 2 years, however long he has to. And if and when the current leader falls over, well, he's the guy that lost by 2 votes last time. So he's the obvious heir apparent, right? So that would be that's why I think some people run when they have no chance. They run to lose with dignity, because if you lose with dignity, people assume you're going to be there in the mix next time around.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So, that's the talking about what we think will happen. What about what you, well, firstly, will it save the Liberals? Like all of this focus now on changing who their leader is. Obviously, the background of this is the Liberals are down to, 17, 18, the coalition combined, 18, 19% of the total vote, which is less than half what they would need to win. And One Nation is up to, is it 28% now in some polls?
Yeah.
That's in the background. This is this is literally rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Well, not literally. It's figuratively a very good analogy of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And yet it has taken up a lot of the focus of our political media. That's right. All anyone's talking about. Are they all talking about the wrong thing?
Well, potentially, but it does have that car crash quality to it that you can't take your eyes away from it, can you? I mean, really, it's extraordinary. But
I'm guilty.
It's an extraordinary story because, how has the Liberal Party ended up like this? And Labor will say it's all Sky News. There are some people in Labor who say Sky News is the best thing that ever happened, Sky After Dark, because all the Liberals...
That was Turnbull's line as well.
It was. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Can I just say on that, Turnbull made the case that the reason the Liberals are going down in the polls is because they have been copying One Nation's kind of xenophobic anti-immigration approach, to which I immediately thought, I put this up on X, this is a testable hypothesis, right? If Turnbull is right, then we should have seen the drop in the Liberal polling happen after they put out their strict immigration policy. They haven't put out an immigration policy.
Yeah.
They haven't done it.
Right. No.
So, it would be interesting to go back and try to pinpoint the timing of this, right? Go through the path, because I think a lot of people are saying Liberals are down because they're fighting with the Nats. They were already trending down, right? They were already going neck and neck with One Nation. So that can't be it. That might have made it worse, but that obviously wasn't the cause. The internal destabilization between the Angus Taylors and the Susan Leighs, the Liberal Party was already crashing before that. So that couldn't be the cause of it either. But yes, there is a very hopeful narrative coming out of the Liberals that disunity has caused their drop in the polls. Fix the disunity, they'll go back up in the polls. And look, it's what I would do if I was them, right? You give that a red hot go. You build that narrative. You say, we needed this big change. You make a big showy change. And then you say, see, things have changed. And then you hope that the polls nudge by 1 or 2%. You get some friendly media to say it's the Liberal comeback. And then you hope that just has a life of its own. So, I mean, I don't begrudge them for doing it, because if I was in the room with them, it's the play that I would back as well, I think. You got to do something. But like you, I'm not overly convinced this will work unless there is a change in direction. So I'll ask you, do you think there's going to be a change in direction? Like, what should happen now?
Well, they need to address the issue that is most on the minds of the ordinary Australian or the median voter, and I think that's immigration. I think they need to have commit to a very significant cut in net overseas migration, and that has to be by processing these bridging visas a lot more quickly, so that a decision is made to, basically, I think we have to reject a whole lot of visa applicants, people on bridging visas waiting to see if they can get permanent residency. I essentially think that's got to happen. And also we've got to slow down the amount of foreign students coming in. So I think we need very heavy cuts to net overseas migration and try and get it back down to around 100,000, just to try and stabilise things in Australia over the next few years, because it's clearly caused a lot of community angst. That's what I think their main policy focus has to be. And if they can go strong on that, then maybe they've got a shot.
Yeah, it does raise the question then, if their policy is basically to have a slightly watered down version of One Nation's policy, if people have already shifted to One Nation, why would that entice them to shift back?
Well, then maybe it's a matter of, maybe they need to team up with One Nation, but people are obviously responding to One Nation, what they're saying. People are starting to think, well, okay, Pauline, maybe, some of the things she was saying, maybe they weren't so crazy after all. And so I think maybe you need to get those voters and they can position themselves as less likely to implode or, cause chaos, which, we've talked about. Well, there's always that risk with One Nation. We saw what happened in Queensland in 1998. I mean, are they a party of government? I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe Pauline's obviously had a lot of, it's quite incredible how she survived over the last 30 years or so in politics. And she's obviously changed, and, she's learned a lot of things. I mean, there's still, there's the Burqa stunt, which was a bit, I think Canavan was rightly critical of that. But look, yeah, maybe. But I think the Liberals, if they're going to survive, they have to try and get some of that. They have to pick up on what is resonating with what One Nation's saying, and then position themselves as the more sensible party, the party that can get into government and actually bring this policy about and not disintegrate into chaos.
All right, a few different directions I want to go. Firstly, I just had to share this comment. Just got back from cooking dinner. Has Albo added any new taxes while I was away? Yes, if you ducked away for 5 or 10 minutes, then probably I would check your pockets, check your wallet. You may want to just make sure that his hand isn't in your back pocket right as we speak. And then another comment here that I wanted to throw to you, Gene. You're getting some pushback from the commentary from Anna. Aussies want mass deportations down to a population of 15 million, not, as Gene proposes, another 100,000 a year. So, well, I guess there's no question in that for you. There's just some pushback for you. I don't know if you want to take that.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking what's politically feasible, really, and what's actually administratively feasible without. Look, I don't know. I don't know how you could achieve that. What Anna Borschen is talking about. I mean, maybe, look, if you can get net overseas migration down to maybe zero, I mean, sure, it'd be good to stabilise the population. I don't know how we get the Australian population down to 15 million, because we don't have that many people who aren't Australian citizens in the country. do we? I mean, really? We've
Yeah,
got a
that's
few
why I
million.
paused when I read those words, because I thought when I saw that, I'm not sure how you would achieve the 15, but it's anyway, not my place to change the
But I
question.
don't even know if One Nation's proposing that, are they? One Nation is, although someone did put, or Anna Borsche did make the comment, One Nation is an LNP satellite. So, yeah, even the One Nation policy isn't strong enough. But look, I mean, clearly what this is telling us is that this is, the hot button issue. This is the issue people care about and want some action on. And so if there is a change of leadership, whoever the Liberal leader is needs to act strongly on migration and come up with a credible policy to, substantially reduce the current rate.
Yeah, and as you'd know, we talked about it before. My take is they should drastically wind back on offering permanent residencies and citizenship. So a lot of people are focused on at the gate. Do they get to step foot in the country? And I understand that instinct, and there's probably something to be done there. But I think if we made it a hell of a lot more difficult to nigh on impossible to actually become permanent residents and citizens, you may find that fewer people want to set foot in the country. And those who do are probably here for a very useful purpose. And when their purpose ends, they can leave again. So I don't think the debate is currently up to the point of nuance and working out how to do it correctly. I think it's still a lot of anger, and the angry people want to see that politicians are listening to them.
Yeah,
I think that's where the debate's up to, and I understand that. So what politicians need to do is say that they will wind it back somehow. When we get to the point of nuance, I would like to then re-enter that debate and say, look, there's several levels that you could take it. Do you let them set foot in the country? Or, as I would suggest, I would make it potentially a 5-year pause, maybe a longer pause, on having just no new citizens, no new PRs. So if you've come in for a reason, you do your reason runs out, you leave the country again. Or you could roll over again if you've got another reason to stay. But once your reason runs out, you run out. Right? There you go. There's my bumper sticker. But anyway, maybe we're not up to the nuance part of that conversation yet. So immigration, I agree. That's an obvious touchstone one. But I'm going to put to you, Gene, hypothetical, you're running for Liberal leader, right? You've got a couple of days to make an impact. Everyone is suddenly looking at you. So you've got their attention. You can say something. You can put an agenda on the table. The exact same situation that Angus Taylor's in now. So you've got the mic. I take it from what you said. The first thing you say is migration. I hear you. We're cutting back migration. We're halving it. We're more than halving it. We're going to try and get it to zero in the hope that Anna might still vote for you, or get it to negative in the hope that Anna might still vote for you. But let's give that one a tick. That topic is out there. Is there any other topics? Like what else would you be running on?
Well, I think we need to talk about tax, and this is what we've put on the episode description, so we'll have to come to tax. But clearly we've got to get NDIS under control. So we've got to have a plan where we're cutting NDIS substantially, we're saving money there, and we're going to funnel that back to people in tax cuts. We've got to have significant tax cuts. The first thing Angus Taylor's got to do is he's got to reverse that impression we had of him at the last election, whereby he opposed that Labor's tax cut, even though it was tiny, but it was a bad look for a Liberal Party shadow treasurer to oppose a tax cut of any kind. It was just really not consistent with their brand. So he's got to come up with a tax cutting plan very urgently to erase people's memories of that, and then to diffuse to block the attack that Jim Chalmers is going to keep running in Parliament at him.
Yeah, it was a big mistake that blocking that income tax cut at the time. We called him out at the time. We were quite disappointed, and we were hoping he was going to come out with a bigger tax cutting agenda, and then there was just crickets. So that was quite a remarkable own goal. And quite disappointing. Yeah. So yes, he's going to have to overcome that. Look, I think you're right. Obviously, I'm leaning into this. I'm asking you the questions, but then when I come in the end, I'm going to talk about tax cuts, because I think that has to be I was thinking, what would I literally do if I was in his situation? Like, not what would I do if I was trying to achieve anarcho-capitalist utopia, but like, what would I actually do in his situation? And you've got to lean into something that's kind of popular. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Your pitch for leadership isn't vote for me, I'm cutting Medicare. Like I think there should be co-payments. If I ever run for leadership, that statement right there will come back to bite me. All right. So I think Medicare needs to be reformed and look different, but you don't lead with that. So I was thinking, what would I lead with? And I think it would be comprehensive income tax reforms. We've got a question here from Darcy. Good old Darcy, Professor Darcy Allard from RMIT. So what economic policies would there be? And he's given us like two bundles. The first one is the one that I'm going to talk about. Personal income tax cuts. Look, I just think that has the sweet spot between being something that needs to be done. We've talked about it so many times before, Gene, the productivity slump. We just talked about it again with these GDP per capita. Looks like it's going to hover around zero or dip back into per capita recessions. It's been around zero for years now. And at the end of the day, you want to get that moving. The only answer is productivity. You want productivity? The only answer is investment and innovation. And you want more of that? Then realistically, there's only a couple of things that kickstart investment and innovation. It's lower taxes, less regulation, and cheaper energy prices. And as Darcy says here, boost productivity through deregulation. I totally agree with that. But just on the political front, if you had 1 minute in front of the camera to pitch your leadership, I think the tax cuts ones are in the sweet spot of something that has to be done for the good of the country and people like to hear. And you could actually carve out a niche there. And you'll have to add a lot of details later. I grant you that. But I think it's something that they should be saying. So both for the good of their politics, their political career, and for the good of the country. Because income taxes, taxes on being productive, of working hard, investing and saving are far too high in this country. And we're going to struggle to fix the productivity problem without fixing that tax situation. So that's why I was thinking, what would I do? That's probably part of what I would do. I'd talk about getting energy prices down, housing prices down, immigration down. And then having said that that's all part of the agenda, I would then carve out a very specific, bold tax cutting agenda, which is what we did in part in our weekly newsletter and our weekly email that went out to everyone who subscribes. If you don't subscribe, please do so. It's on Substack. You can subscribe for free. There is no need to give us money. Of course, if you would like to give us some money to help us keep the lights on, that would be very much appreciated. You can join on Substack. You can do the paid joining on Substack. Look, realistically, on Substack, we give you everything for free. So you don't need to pay to be able to get involved in the conversation, receive the newsletters and be in the mix. So I'm just letting you know up front there is no like real hidden benefits. We're just saying, if you like what we're doing, please consider becoming a paid member so we can keep doing it. But our goal is to get the information out there. So hiding the information kind of goes against what we're trying to achieve. And you can also join on our website, taxpayers.org.au. There is a little join button up the top right. If you join that way, we pay slightly fewer fees. So, please consider joining that way. So that would help us in what we are doing. But we do then every week send out a newsletter, and this week's newsletter, the theme was what sort of tax cutting agenda, a bold tax cutting agenda for whoever is the opposition leader, whether that is Susan Ley or Angus Taylor or Pauline Hanson, because I knew in writing that email, some people would say, oh, look, the Liberals are irrelevant. Okay, well then Pauline Hanson needs a bold tax cutting agenda, right? Whoever it is needs a bold tax cutting agenda. Or a tax abolition agenda, as Anna would say. Look, by the way, little segues or sidetracks in sidetracks. Anna, I agree with the sentiment, but I would say technically taxation is extortion. I think if you look up the definition of theft and the definition, it doesn't help, right? It's not a good thing. It's not a great defense of taxation. Extortion is not a good thing, but I think technically speaking is extortion. By the way, so I'll just finish this thought, throw to Eugene, and then I've got to do something in the background. So the newsletter we had go out this week has outlined a tax cutting agenda. If you haven't received it yet, please go and check us out on oztaxpayers.substack.com. But otherwise, we'll do the summary now. Gene, did you have a chance to have a read of that? And
yeah, I thought it was good, John. I thought, yeah, that all sounds great. I mean, the critical thing, though, is if we're going to start cutting taxes, we've got to cut the spending too. So we've got to do, at the same time, look at NDIS, see if we can tighten eligibility, perhaps look at some means testing there, because that is just such a monster that is eating, it's eating everything else in the budget. We're not going to be able to fund anything else, right, because of NDIS. And you see all the allegations about rorting, in Western Sydney, all of the NDIS providers in 1 kilometre, 1 square kilometre. I forget the stat, but yeah, Drew Pablo had a tweet on that today. I saw. It's like, oh, gee, it looks a bit suspicious, doesn't it? So they're the types of things we've got to get onto.
It was looking very dodgy. I see that. But although it's not just the NDIS, health and pensions are a killer as well. Like long term, if we're not addressing those, then we are going to struggle. You were going to say?
Oh, the other thing too, John, I'm wondering, like, not just the big picture politics. Like Angus Taylor has got to, he needs to be a better retail politician if he's going to be a leader. I mean, one thing that Barnaby Joyce is very good at is the retail politics, and another person who was for a time was Mark Latham before he sort of self-destructed. But so I wonder if there's an issue where you can find something that is upsetting to ordinary people, and then go, well, I'm going to stop the business class flights of politicians or something like that. Or look at some of their entitlements and really. Like it's against their own interests, but I wonder if they can find an issue like that that's going to resonate with people that isn't necessarily a big picture policy issue that could help them, recover.
Yeah, I think there's something in the fact that often the political cut through can come from things that are policy wise fairly small time.
Yeah.
So I think there's something in that. Although I got to say, I think most of the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. I know I keep using metaphors and analogies here, but I think most of the easy stuff to do to get political support, once you say it, everyone agrees, and then there's no point of differentiation. I think what we need is a bit more political courage for people to be willing to say something that other people won't. And that can still be on a small issue, right? To go to your point, it doesn't need to be a big issue. But I'll see if I can find the quote, but I've been so bemused and unimpressed by this sort of leadership contest with all of the motherhood statements that people are coming out with. And I saw Dan Tehan, and I don't mean to pick on Dan Tehan. I don't know the guy. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. But his pitch for deputy leader was so mind-numbingly vacuous. He said, I've got a 4-point plan. And I thought, oh, great. Interesting, a 4-point plan. Could be some details coming. And it was, we need to unite, we need to disagree with Labor, we need to come up with policies, and we need to be, fit and ready to go.
Yeah.
What? The ever-loving swear word. I mean, there was no content there. And I was thinking, the trick is, whatever they say, if every other politician would just immediately go, oh yeah, me too, then they haven't said anything.
Yeah.
But the same thing, God bless him. I like Angus. I've met him a few times. He's a smart guy. And I've got a lot of time for him, but his original pitch to voters was, I like kittens and long walks on the beach, and there was nothing in there that anyone would have disagreed with. We need strong leadership. Yeah, I'm sure Susan Lee thinks that too. And look, maybe it's a bit unfair to pick on Angus or Dan because like everyone does it, and it is the conventional wisdom, right? The conventional wisdom of politics is don't say anything aloud. Right? In public, don't say anything. I mean, say words, but make sure your words have no meaning, have no content to them. Because anytime you say anything with content, you risk offending some more people, right? The people who agree with you, they're not necessarily going to vote for you because you've said it, but the people who disagree with you might rule you out and never vote for you again.
Yeah.
So every time you say a sentence with content, you are decreasing the number of people who might vote for you. But if you just say really nice motherhood statements, and have a good way of looking at the camera, a good turn of phrase, and use some alliteration, then you don't offend anyone and you might be able to slide through. And that's the conventional wisdom. And I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Look, I was just thinking, the one person on that side of politics who does say what he thinks and says things frankly and in a way that does cut through is Matt Canavan. But Matt's not in the Liberal Party and he's in the Senate. But if they had Matt in the lower house, I mean, he'd be a natural for opposition leader, really, because I think he's one of the only people there who's saying things that are interesting. Like he's going to upset people, right? He'll upset, people, particularly in inner city seats. But whatever, he's saying important things. He's saying interesting things, and he's a sort of candidate who could actually get onto an issue and win the public debate and actually pick up their, improve their prospects.
No, absolutely. Matt's kind of the example of something closer to what I hope I would be doing if I was in politics. Firstly, he went to the backbench so that he could speak freely. So I've always thought that would be the way to go. I mean, if I went into politics, I'd be doing it for the ideas. Cabinet solidarity means you can't have any, or you can't share any, right? You can have them in your bedroom, home alone, and just whisper them to your shadow. But so he went to the backbench, took a pay cut so he could speak freely about in the battle of ideas. And the other thing about Matt is he's genuinely a policy thinker, right? He's a smart guy. Very, very well educated because he had a very excellent tutor back at the University of Queensland in the year 1999. That's showing your age.
Who knows? I mean, who knows what influences young minds? I mean, it very well.
I'm sure that had nothing to do with it, but he's a smart guy. And he's willing to take risks. He's willing to do the exact thing I said there that most people don't. He's not following the conventional wisdom. He's saying things that will piss people off. And I'd like to see that. Now, I think the conventional wisdom is wrong for two reasons. One is, even if it's correct, what it does is if you follow the conventional wisdom, you kind of handcuff yourself to a do-nothing agenda. Right? If you haven't put a courageous, controversial idea on the table and argued for it and won the argument, then you're not going to be able to sneak it through later. Right? You might be able to sneak into power, but you can't sneak through legislation. It's going to be noticed, right?
Yes.
So eventually you're going to have to win the argument. And so I'd say if you only get into power by basically being nothing to everyone or everything to everyone and boldly standing for nothing, you're not going to be able to get anything done. Right, you'll have tied your hands too much. And so, yes, even if the conventional wisdom is correct in getting into power, I would argue it undermines the very reason why you would ever want to get into power, unless you're just doing it because you want power, right? And there's some people out there like that, a lot of them in Parliament, I would imagine. But for those people who want power to get something done, you can't hide everything you want to get done beforehand. You have to admit to at least some of it beforehand if you want to get it done. But secondly, I would say I think the worm is turning. I think conventional wisdom was basically correct until about 5 to 10 years ago. But I think there is such a growing amount of disillusionment in the nature of politics now, and a hunger for a politician that sounds like a human, right? That sounds like that there's a there, to use the comment I was saying before, to sound like they have any genuineness to them, right? That they stand for something, even if it's not particularly popular all the time. I think there is a growing hunger for that. Now, there's two things, right? Because there is still the original argument, the conventional wisdom is still somewhat true. You say too much blunt stuff, it pisses people off and they won't look at you again. But I think that's now being balanced against the fact that there is some hunger for a conviction politician. And I don't know when that scale is going to balance towards conviction politicians. I don't know when that's going to be, but I think that is now a contested battlefield about which is the best way forward. And everyone inside, all of the consultants, everyone inside the LNP and the Liberals in the HQ working out there, how to get the marginal seat, they're going to just dismiss this as the crazy talk of a internet rambler. And I get that. And I think they were right for most of the last couple of decades. But Trump came along, Farage came along, Le Pen came along, Maloney came along. I think politics is changing. I think they might still be running from the old rule book. And there is going to be a moment, I think, where this shifts over and a conviction politician who's willing to, boldly speak their mind on something that is controversial might end up beating someone who has really good platitudes and a nice haircut. I hope that day is coming because I would prefer to see that day. I'd prefer to see the policy debate.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the background there, I did invite Darcy Allen to come and join us since he was listening in. I don't know, Darcy, if you're still there, check your Facebook Messenger. I have sent you a link to come and join us. I should have thought of reaching out before this. We should definitely get Darcy in. He works in this in the regulatory area. Going to his message, right? He mentions tax cuts, probably sort of playing to what I was going to talk about. And then he includes another idea there, unleash tech to boost productivity. We've previously had Chris Berg as a guest on this show on Death and Taxes. Darcy Allen is a comrade in arms with Chris Berg in their fatwa against regulation that holds back productivity. I think they're doing God's work. It is very important stuff. The regulatory barriers they want to knock down to be able to boost innovation. I think it's hugely important because you can also do it without, you don't have to get into those discussions about cutting spending, right? So politicians who are scared to do that, you can cut regulation and it doesn't lose you any revenue. It's just not a very sexy topic, unfortunately. But I'm sure if Darcy came to join us, like when Chris joined us, he'd be able to make the topic interesting. So, Darcy, this is your invite. Come in and join us. Sorry, Jean, you were going to say.
Yeah, John, can we go back to your tax policies? Because I was reminded when we were talking about Matt Canavan, because when he was a new senator, before he was a minister under Malcolm Turnbull, I invited him to talk to Economic Society of Australia, the Queensland branch, on he had a family tax policy, which is similar to what you're proposing. So I think it's fascinating. It'd be good to go through that. I mean, you're basically talking about income splitting, aren't you, or combining tax-free thresholds? Should we go through that, the specifics of that, and what you see as the benefits?
That's
the wrong slideshow.
It is.
That's it.
There we go. Yes, what I'm suggesting is quite similar. Or one of the things I'm suggesting is quite similar to income splitting. So shall we roll through this?
Yeah, I think it'd be good to. Yeah, given we promised it, that's what we're talking. The main topic.
Look, I've got to admit here as well. I'm trying to keep these emails short and sharp. I'm not writing them necessarily a technical audience, so that I don't have all of the footnotes here and the nuances about exactly which bracket would change where. So bear with me a little bit. I have to use a bit of shorthand, but yeah, these were the 5 ideas. I have more than 5 ideas, I promise you. I started writing and then I whittled them down. And these are ideas ATA have been pushing for quite a while, including at the last federal election campaign. So you'll be able to see a link on our website, taxpayers.org.au. You can see a link through to tax policies we were pushing back then. This is very similar stuff. But these was the 5 that I narrowed it down to for my suggestions to an incoming opposition leader. Firstly, this is relatively tame. Just increase the tax-free threshold. Now, it's currently 18,200. Effectively, it's currently 21, right? There's lots of silly little rules. Our tax system is so complicated, it basically prevents us talking about it. I don't know if that is by design, but it is so insufferably Byzantine in its complexity that to start going through it, I have to take so many segues and this is tax offset plus this tax concession plus this different treatment. If your uncle is named Richard and you once had a left boot that was size 12 or whatever, it is so complicated. But anyway, the point I'm making here is the tax-free threshold just needs to go up. This is a fairly bite-sized increase that would be quite affordable. Because what I'm suggesting is you increase the tax-free threshold up to 25,000 and you get rid of the tax offsets and the work-related tax deductions that give a similar but slightly smaller benefit anyway. And this would just simplify the system. And what I'm driving at here is there are a lot of people in this country that are both paying tax and receiving welfare. Yeah, which is ridiculous, pointless churn. Now, this would still happen here because I haven't been radical enough in this proposal, because this proposal is for a mainstream politician. I haven't been radical enough here to get rid of all the churn. Singles are paying tax and receiving welfare when they're earning 30,000, when they're earning 35,000. Now, married people with children are both paying tax and receiving welfare when they're on 60,000 for their family. And I think we should be striving to get rid of all of that tax welfare churn. But as a first step, all right, let's get the tax-free threshold up. Also, some just red meat. The tax cut goes to everyone. So they're not accusing you of only giving rich people tax cuts. So that's where I'm starting. Secondly, and this is where you came into it, this is the idea that's sometimes called income tax splitting, but I treat it slightly differently, is family tax treatment. So the point here is if you had a $25,000 tax-free threshold, so that, just to explain that, for those who haven't heard the term before, that means the first $25,000 you'd earn, I'm suggesting in point 1, you wouldn't pay any tax on that. For a family, married people with kids, we would say you can combine that. So currently, if you kept it separate, if you had 2 people earning $25,000, they would both get the full tax-free threshold. But you could have a situation where there's a family where one person earns most of the income and the other person maybe is not earning any income. So let's use the radical example where one person's earning 50, the other one's earning 0. Under the current system, that person earning 50 only has a $25,000, or they actually only have an $18,000 tax-free threshold at the moment, and they got to pay tax on all the rest of their income. What I'm suggesting is combine it. If you've married someone, allow them to combine your tax-free thresholds together. have a joint tax-free threshold of 50. So even if one person earns that whole 50, they pay no tax because they've got their $25,000 tax-free threshold and they've got their partner's $25,000 tax-free threshold that they can also use. And then on top of that, I'm also suggesting we then increase the tax-free threshold by another $10,000 for every child you have. So as the example says here, if you have 3 children, up to $80,000 a year tax-free threshold. And then you would hopefully start to significantly wind back the amount of pointless churn we have in the tax welfare system. So this is similar to income splitting. If all you did was literally add together all of the thresholds, then it's exactly the same as income splitting.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the criticism of income splitting that often gets it ruled off the table is that a lot of the benefit goes to very rich people. All right. And look, I've got no problem with giving benefits to rich people, but if we're trying to get a policy that's going to get passed, then you have to listen to what issue is preventing people from implementing the policy. So one approach to this, and it's actually the more common approach around the world, is instead of just income splitting, which is adding together all of the thresholds, what you do is you add together some of the thresholds. But say, so for people at a lower income, you add together both of their tax-free thresholds. So say it was 25, then the family one would be 50. And the next threshold in Australia, the threshold where you start paying the 30% rate, that's currently 45. I would argue it should go up to 50. So for sake of easy maths, let's say it's at 50. So if it's a $50,000 threshold, and after that you pay 30%, I'd say for families, put it together, make it 100. Right? So that's the same as income splitting so far. But then for the higher brackets, like for the highest bracket we've got in Australia, it kicks in at 190,000. You don't necessarily need to double that one. So that's why I've suggested it this way. If you talk about family tax treatment, joint thresholds, you can give all of these benefits for most of the people earning between 50 and 200, which covers most family situations. But the thing stopping this policy from getting listened to by a lot of people is the size of the benefit that goes to someone on $1 million. So I'm just trying to wind back. People on $1 million could still get a benefit from what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to wind back the size of their benefit to make this more politically achievable. That's why I think it's more advantageous to talk about it this way with family joint thresholds.
So, John, can I ask? I mean, I think it sounds good. I like the idea we're talking about effectively cutting taxes, really, which is good. Like, I think we need to, I'd love to pay lower taxes in Australia. But what's your motivation for this? Is this part of your pro-natalist agenda? Is this this is about having a family-friendly tax system which doesn't force women to sort of work? It may be easier for women to then take time out of the workforce. Is that the idea? Is it to encourage people to have children? Is that part of the agenda here?
Well, part of the agenda is to cut tax.
Yes.
And so, and then cut tax in such a way that people notice it and talk about it. Look, and then cut tax in a way that helps boost the economy, but also has voters go, oh, look, I could potentially benefit from that. And so they pay attention and the policy can get done, right? So I'm just admitting to the Machiavellian element. But I also think it's, unambiguously just a good tax cutting policy as well. One part is to equalize the treatment.
Yeah.
Right. So we have an unequal treatment where in the welfare system, you are treated one way, and then in the tax system, you're treated a different way. And what it ends up doing in both systems, you've got an option where in both systems, you could go, are you going to pick the pro-family or the anti-family approach? And what we've currently got is in the welfare system, we've ticked the anti-family approach. And in the tax system, we've picked the anti-family approach. Now, I'm not saying that we necessarily need them both to be pro-family. That would be a purist pro-natalist position. But I'm saying to balance the system, at least one of them, right? We should be consistent, right? So a consistent treatment would mean that if you are anti-family in the welfare system, it becomes pro-family in the tax system, or vice versa. So this would balance, this would even out the system. So it doesn't have, I would say we currently have a strong anti-family bias embedded in our tax welfare system. And this removes that anti-family bias. So that's part of the motivation. Look, I also do think it's actually important that people have a lot more kids. But at the same time, I actually don't think tax incentives are going to be a particularly good cure for having people have more kids. I just think this is the right thing to do, right? This evens out an inequality in the tax system, and it provides a tax cut in a way that is a meaningful tax cut, a meaningful benefit to people that are paying attention. And well, in a hypothetical situation where I'm going to be opposition leader, we need these people's votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, I am pro-natalist. That's certainly true. It's a very fair accusation to throw at me, but
wasn't necessarily an accusation. I mean,
people at home might. They'd say, "Oh, you're just pro-natalist, and you're just trying to use the tax system to push your pro-natalist agenda." I am a pro-natalist. I don't think a tax or welfare system is particularly going to achieve that outcome. So I would like people to have more kids. I would like this tax change. But I don't actually think there's a very strong link between this tax change and more kids. So that's not really my motivation. My motivation is to try to take away the anti-tax bias that exists in our tax and welfare system. Moving on to I've got 5 points here. First one, increase the tax-free threshold. Second one, take away, actually that's what I should call it, take away the anti-family bias in our tax system. Yep. That's number 2. Number 3, this one won't be particularly politically popular, but I think these are the things that need to be said aloud. We've talked about this last week. The top marginal tax rate basically only exists so that politicians can prove they hate rich people. It is extremely inefficient tax. The top marginal tax rate raises very little money, if any. I think it might not raise any, but if you think it does raise money, it doesn't raise very much. And it is a big disincentive. Like, it is a big thing holding back productivity. And what I'm saying here is I understand it's probably going to be too hard to sell, to tell people that top rate, we have to bring it down from 47 down to, let's abolish it, or let's take it down to 40 or whatever. Even though I note that in 2007, Peter Costello pitched to move that top rate down to 42%. So it has, it made it onto the agenda before. But anyway, even then,
this was an aspiration, was it? They hadn't legislated that. That was some aspiration.
They tried to legislate it. That part didn't get legislated. So they got pushed back in the Senate. They didn't get that part through.
You're right. Yeah.
But they announced the policy. And look, most of the policy went through. Most of the policy is roughly our current tax system. But this part of it didn't get through. All right. So let's say that can't get through. What I'm saying is let's at least set the threshold so that this top tax rate only kicks in for the really rich. Right. So I'm suggesting here, like, people are talking about you need this high tax on millionaires. All right. If you mean millionaires, well, then let's apply it to millionaires. Right here, I've even said 500,000. Right. So let's apply it to people on 500,000. I prefer to apply it to people on 1 million, but I'm trying to be reasonable here. So let's make it so that you can keep this prohibitive, I would say economically stupid top tax rate. You can keep it, but let's only apply it to the really, really rich. And not apply it to the people who are upwardly mobile, who've got a few promotions, done well in some law firm, and are earning 250. Let's let them off the hook, right? You're still charging them a lot. You're still charging them, 39%? That's still, in my opinion, too much. But let's not have those people fall into this top tax bracket. Let's save that only for the super rich. The fourth idea here is one that I think is hugely important. We talked about it last week. I start to lose people now. I start to lose their interest. Just quickly, by the way.
Yeah, this is
absolutely. Aussie, this point by Aussie is absolutely true. This stuff needs to be done in a bundle. So there's parts of this that actually offset each other. So just going back to, for instance, this first point here, high tax-free threshold, it included getting rid of work-related deductions. Work-related deductions, the people who use that the most are exactly these people. So this policy actually would hurt rich people. But then this one would kind of compensate for that, right? And you say, if you just looked at this on its own, you think, oh, it's just helping rich people. Well, this policy actually takes something away from rich people and gives it to lower income people. So,
John, you're saying
this is intended as a package.
John, are you saying that if I'm a doctor, I can't deduct the expenses of my trip to, some Caribbean island for a conference?
Outrageous.
That's what you're saying. This will be super unpopular among the doctors and dentists that I know, John.
You can just get your employer to pay for it. Then that's fine. They'll be able to deduct it from their profits. There's ways around that, right? You'll get your conference. And look, you've got a higher tax-free threshold to offset it. So, but anyway, moving on to number 4. Number 4 here is about. Now, I understand most people when they think of income tax, are thinking about the income tax they pay. on your, sorry, you end up paying it all, but on your wage, right? So you've got a job, you're earning a wage, and you pay income tax on it. But of course, you also pay income tax on your savings. On your savings turns into an investment. You get a return on your investment that has income tax on it as well. It's far less of a sexy topic in politics. It probably doesn't get as many votes, but it's actually probably more important in terms of productivity than normal income tax, because there's a higher behavioral reaction, a higher behavioral response here. And we talked before about if you want productivity, you need investment and innovation. Well, this is investment. Literally, savings turns into investment. Return on investment is the capital income we're talking about taxing. You tax it more, people will do it less. There's really, this is, there is some ambiguity about if you tax people more on their work, whether they'll work less. People argue that point. I think they're wrong, but they argue it. With this one, on capital, there is no argument. If you tax the return on capital more, you will get less investment in capital.
Yeah.
And you need investment in capital if you want to get productivity rolling. So this has to be included in a good tax reform proposal. This probably isn't where you're going to win the votes short term, but this is where you will fix the economy, get wages rising, get prices down, get productivity going, the economy growing, and that long term is good for your political agenda, because I hope it's also just good for the country. Can we do something that's good for the country? We need to get wages rising and productivity rising. And for that, we need less tax on the money that people save and invest. Now, there's a couple of ways to do that. One issue is how you tax the money when you make it. We've talked about that before. The government is currently looking to put up the tax on capital gains, right? And we discussed that last week, and we suggested a few different options. And I think there's a good reason to have concessional treatment of capital gains, compensate for inflation, if nothing else. But what I'm suggesting here is on the other side. This isn't the getting concessional treatment of your tax on your capital income. What I'm saying here is if you make that first decision to save in the first place, that decision to save in the first place, if you put that money into a savings account, that money that you save, that should be tax deductible. So if you earn $100,000, you save $20,000, you put the $20,000 to a savings account, you still spend $80,000. I would say the income tax should only apply to the $80,000. Right? You get a tax deduction for the money you save. Now, I would cap it at $20,000. Otherwise, people would just say, oh, look, rich people will put in $1 million. All right. I don't think it's a big problem, but to make it politically viable, cap it at some amount. But this, I would say, is really a good way to kickstart more savings and investment. Important on the productivity side. On the political side, the way to sell this is it's going to help people save for their house. Right? Because saving, you put the money into a savings account, you put that in tax-free, you're going to be able to put more in, you're going to be able to earn more on it, also tax-free. And if, when you take that money out, you spend it on a house, that's another investment. So you're still not paying tax on that money. So I don't think this is the main solution to the housing problem. The main solution is to have, probably fewer immigrants and fewer zoning laws so that you can build more houses. That's probably the main part of the solution to the housing problem. But, one part of it would be to allow people to make it easier for people to save. Right. And I think I'm not alone when I'm saying I think it feels like it's getting harder to save in this economy. Saving is what we need.
Well, we talked about flat real wages, declining real per capita income. So, yeah, absolutely.
By the way, John, another just little point on this is that every economist will tell you that the GST is more efficient than the income tax. You should cut the income tax and raise the GST. You've heard it before. Look, it's technically true. I'm not arguing against it. But my point is, you got to understand the reason for that. The reason a GST is more efficient than an income tax is it does exactly what I'm talking about here. It doesn't tax the money that you earn and immediately save. It only taxes the money you earn and spend. So the whole reason a GST is better than an income tax. If you are an econ boffin sitting at home sort of shaking your head thinking, oh, I don't like the tax deductible savings idea. If you have been convinced that a GST is more efficient than an income tax, that's the same thing I'm saying here. It's the same reason this policy is good, right? But this one is more achievable, right? I think it would be more politically popular, more achievable, and achieves exactly the benefits that we say we're trying to achieve. So tax deductible savings, I think it needs to be in the mix. And the last one here is, and we've discussed this before as well, indexing the tax brackets. For those who don't know, we have bracket creep in this country where inflation pushes your wage up, even if your real wage doesn't go up, right? By that, I mean, if there's inflation of 5% and your wage goes up 5%, yeah, on paper, you've got a higher wage, but you don't really have any more wage, right? You don't have a higher real wage, we call it. You can't buy anything else. Your wage went up by 5%, but everything you buy went up by 5%, right? You're no richer, right? The only reason you have money is so that you can do something with it. If you can't buy any more goods, you haven't got any richer, right? So what we've got right now is a situation where inflation can push you up into higher tax brackets. So even though you're no richer, you're paying more tax, which is just like at a fairness level, it's just wrong. Firstly, it's an automatic secret hidden tax increase that happens every year. It's worth billions of dollars, a billions of dollars tax increase every year that doesn't get debated in Parliament, doesn't even get reported on in the media unless you can find a good journalist to echo something that Gene and I are shouting. So they sneak through this tax increase in a situation where our income taxes are already far too high. And then just the unfairness of it should make your skin crawl. Like you're not getting any richer. That the government creates the inflation, and then the inflation pushes you into a tax bracket. That means you have to pay more tax even though you haven't got more money. It's just wrong. So
they need it. They need it. The politicians need it so that the budget figures improve over the forward estimates. That's why they want it, don't they? They want to.
Yeah, but I mean, let's word that another way. Because the government keeps spending money they don't have, they need to introduce secret hidden tax increases that are totally unfair and not debated in Parliament, not mentioned in the media, just secret hidden tax increases on ordinary people. They need to do that because they just need more of your money to be able to pay for their spending projects. I mean, let's word it like that. It is indefensible, and I understand they want it, but they shouldn't have it. If they need more of our money, they should admit it publicly, take it to Parliament, take it to an election, take it to Parliament and say, look, we want to increase tax here. And look, let's see where people fall on that. But this hidden tax increase stuff, it's I do not approve. I do not approve. So the solution to it is to index tax brackets. So if your wages, so all the prices are going up 5%, your wages are going up 5%, the tax brackets should go up by 5% as well, so that you don't get caught in a higher tax bracket. So you're just paying the same rate of tax you were the previous year. So that's the solution. Politicians know what the solution is here. They've heard it before. Yeah. They've talked about it before. They always say exactly what Gene says. No, we need secret hidden tax increases because I want to be able to spend the taxpayers' money, but I don't want them to get angry at me. Because if we admitted we were increasing the tax, they'd get angry at me. So I want a secret hidden tax increase so I take their money without them knowing, and then I offer it back to them in a handout or a subsidy, and then they'll vote for me. Well, that is a shitty argument in terms of good policy. It's politics. Yeah. But here's the thing. From the conservative side of politics, from the center right or right side of politics, I think they've got the politics wrong. This is going to hamstring how much revenue the Liberal Party can raise. True. It'll also hamstring how much a future Labor Party can raise. And it'll bite on them harder. It'll be harder for them to deal with. You'd be setting the rules of the game in a way that is biased towards good economic management. So then whoever's the better economic manager should be able to win long-term in that environment. So unless the Liberals are saying, oh, look, long run, I think we're just going to be shitty economic managers. In the long run, you would win. Index tax brackets, it creates discipline on you, but it creates discipline on the other side. And if you are better at living within your means, you will win that game. Yeah. So I think the Liberals have misunderstood the politics of this. They should immediately index tax brackets. Immediately. Anyway, those are the 5 ideas I'm suggesting here. If I was pitching for Liberal leader, Humphreys for Liberal leader 2026, I would be. This would be the start of my tax reform agenda, along with making it much harder to get PR and citizens, and getting rid of the climate madness so we can get energy prices down, and build, baby, build, so we could get house prices down, and make all the bureaucrats live outside of capital cities. But
I like that one. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a long rant by me going into these 5 tax ideas.
I think it's good stuff, John. There are a couple of comments, or there's a comment and a question on this tax deductible savings proposal. Should we go over those?
Oh, yeah, yes. All right. Look, I think we've got to the end of the actual what we were going to rant at our poor innocent audience for. So I think we're actually up to going through people's questions now anyway. So just to remind you guys, questions, comments, criticisms, you don't have to agree with us. Feel free to throw shade. We'll try to get to it if we can. We're going to go to questions now. And then we do try to knock off before about an hour and a half. Used to be an hour. We've long since given up on that goal. But we got 10 minutes. So let's see what we can get through in 10 minutes here. So I don't know how to say this person's name, but RW. I'm going to call you RW. Effectively, farm managed deposits, savings into FMD, reduce income until you pull it out. Yeah, look, I don't know the details of how FMDs work to this degree. Let me know this part. The money in an FMD, is returns on that investment also tax-free? Because just to answer the question coming from Aussie here, is the tax on exit and on the interest only? It's on the exit. It's when you pull the money out is what I'm suggesting. So I'm suggesting when you put the money in, it's tax deductible. When you're earning money, that money is tax deductible because you earn the money. And if you put the money straight back in, I would say that the money that's in, I would say everyone gets to create a savings trust, right? A tax-free savings trust. And if you put the money in, the money that goes in is not taxed. The money that it earns in there is taxed. It's when you bring it out that it is taxed. What I'm basically doing is I'm replicating a consumption tax.
Yeah.
Right. This is a Caldor tax, right? This is the tax deductions on savings on an income tax. Basically turns an income tax, economically speaking, functionally into a consumption tax. So I'm taxing it when you're taking the money to spend it. So if you're not taking the money to spend, I'm letting it just grow. So no tax for putting when you put it in for the money, no tax for the money you put in, no tax while the money grows, tax it when it comes out. Because when you're taking it out, you're taking it out to spend. And that's when you tax it. And I would suggest as well that if you keep the money in there until after retirement, when you take the money out, you tax it at half the marginal rate. So you get a 50% discount on the tax rate. And that's what I would use instead of super. And then I would abolish the superannuation system. So, I mean, this conversation is getting carried away now. But yes, part of what I'd be setting up here in my mind is the alternative to superannuation. I think there should be tax advantaged savings. I don't think super should be compulsory. And I also think the way you get a tax advantage in super is too convoluted, confusing and wrong. So this is how I would tax advantage your savings. And then I would make it optional, but with a big tax discount if you hold the money in there until retirement. And that incentivizes you to pay for your own retirement. All right, so I'm being a little bit nicer then. If the interest is not tax-free, the interest on the accounts that I'm talking about, let's go back, the Humphreys savings trusts, those would be the interest or the dividends or the capital gains would be tax-free. It would all be tax-free until you tried to take it out to spend it.
Yeah.
So if you took it out to just buy another investment asset, I wouldn't call that taking it out, right? It's still, the money is still being used to save and invest. So you could sell something, you could sell a house, get a capital gain. If you immediately roll it over to buy a new house, I would not charge that tax on that. When you take the money out to actually use it in your life, then that's when you would pay the tax on the withdrawal, like a consumption tax. All right. So should we start going back? Here's one for you, Gene, because I haven't looked into it enough, and I'm hoping you have because you're more diligent than I am. CFMEU has apparently been smuggling $15 billion of corrupt money to Victorian bikies. Do you know anything about that?
I've seen some of the reporting. Look, we know that there's a lot of dodginess going on down there. So, yeah, look, I can't say I know enough about it to say anything more than, it looks pretty bad. And, I mean that's one issue that they've got. Like that Victorian government, it's not just that. It's the fact that they're incompetent at economic and management and public finance. This is one issue. This is one problem among many that they've got. I can't see them. Although I don't know how the opposition down there is going. Maybe they don't, that they won't be able to, particularly with the trouble in the Liberal Party, they won't be able to, beat Labor next election. But it just seems to be such a terrible government they've got down there.
Yeah, although, is it even possible now? Is Victoria not gone fully California?
I mean, it's
with
far worse than
California.
California.
I mean, in terms of their voting habits, it's like
it's
very hard to.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
If the Liberal Party was perfect, if the Victorian Liberal Party was perfect in every way, are there enough people in Victoria left that would actually vote for a good government when the other side would say, hey, I'll bankrupt the country, but I'll give you a free kitten first? Now, I don't know Victoria that well, but it still seems to me like 51% of Victoria would bankrupt the country if they got a free kitten. Prove me wrong, Victoria. Prove me wrong.
I think there'd be enough sensible people in Victoria who recognise this. The current government they've got's just a complete disaster. I mean, really.
Well, we'll see. The elections later this year in Victoria. If you are a long-suffering Victorian, let us know what's happening down there. Or feel free to come on the show and explain what's happening.
Darcy's in Victoria, isn't he? We're going to get Darcy on.
I think he used to suffer that indignity.
Yeah.
I know they love their town, but it will be interesting to see what happens at that election. I don't know much about Jess Wilson, the leader of the Liberal Party down there. All I know is she's apparently a mod, a dripping wet lefty. That's code for. But she has been given the endorsement by Gideon Rosner, who a man who I very much enjoy and like and trust. Gideon says that we should look out for Jess as one of the good guys, or good gals in this case. So I look forward to seeing what happens there. And if Gideon trusts them, I'm willing to listen. So let's hope. Let's hope Gideon's judgment is right down there. And Gideon, if you're watching, you should also come on the show sometime. I might hit him up next week. Force him to. All right, next one. A report from Matthias Cormann. Too much government spending, housing is a basket case, and lifting GST and land tax over stamp duty. I don't know what land tax over stamp duty. Oh, land tax instead of stamp duty. Well, we've got a land tax, right? That's the thing about when New South Wales switched from stamp duty to land tax. They already had a land tax, so it's very confusing in the budget papers now because they've got stamp duty, land tax, and property tax. Land, property, all right, kind of synonyms there, but but yes, all right. Firstly, government has got far too much spending. Yes, absolutely. Way too much, but taxes are too high and we're in a deficit. So you've got to get rid of the debt and you've got to get taxes down. So you have to spend less. I mean, it's not sustainable. If we don't get the debt under control, we'll eventually be a basket case. If you don't get the taxes down, we won't get productivity up and we'll be stagnant forever and we'll turn into a basket case. And either way you look at it, yeah, government spending is too high and needs to be reduced. You were going to say? You're going to disagree?
Well, I mean, I think, I don't disagree with you. I think basket case, I mean, what you're talking about is essentially you have to have some painful adjustment later with higher taxes or heavy cuts to be able to get the budget, the debt under control, or you're talking about the whole fiscal dominance scenario where you end up, you just have to rely on inflation to bring the debt down, right? So it eventually
ends with inflation. But I mean, the problem with that is just because you have inflation, does that mean that people suddenly vote for a Milton Friedman-esque monetarist to take over the central bank? Because people will see runaway inflation, and what does the average numpty say? I need a handout. The inflation is high. True. I need a handout. I understand the instinct. But that's what's causing the inflation.
People in Argentina figured it out, right?
Well, they had a very charismatic libertarian leader. And it's very interesting to see in Argentina in the first year, I think it's over 2 years, but nearly all of it in the first year, he cut government spending by 30%. He cut the size of government by a third.
Yeah.
Right. So it turned a budget deficit into a budget surplus, got taxes down, got regulation down. The economy was shrinking at, I think, 2% a year. Now it's growing at 4% a year. Wages were shrinking at 5 to 10% a year. Now they're 10% higher than when he came in. Poverty was at 42% when he came in. When he originally cut spending, that poverty spiked up. 42 and it went up. And everyone said, oh, clearly libertarian economics doesn't work. It's now at 32. Notice 32 is less than 42. So absolute poverty or extreme poverty went from 12 down to 7. He got rid of the minimum wage and wages have gone up. They were going down, but they've gone up. And he got rid of rent controls. And Instead, rents have gone down by 50%, and available rental properties have gone up by 300%. So I just think across the board, this is stuff that if people cared about good outcomes, they would be looking at these, and they would be taking a second look at libertarian economics. But we have not yet seen, other than John Ruddock, who, to his credit, mentions Javier Milei's name in Parliament every time he goes into Parliament. It seems that the major parties are still a little bit shy at looking at the lessons of Argentina.
Well, we've had,
So
there's a complacency that's been created because we've had this, the resource boom, haven't we? At times, with China buying all our iron ore and coal, and that sort of helped out our living standards, kept the dollar at from crashing, and also has provided the governments with huge amounts of tax revenue at times. Unfortunately, they've found ways to spend it and spend even more than the additional revenue. But yeah, we've just been so lucky, and just created complacency.
Yeah, we've also had a deficit of political courage, and it goes together, right? If you didn't need to have courage, you don't bother having courage because you can get reelected without it. And like any muscle, if you don't use it, it gets weak. But the muscle of political courage is one that has not been used very much in the last 20, 25 years. I think it explains some of the appeal of Pauline Hanson, because I think that's her main attribute that she has, that people look at and that they see as lacking in others, that she has this conviction. She's willing to stand up and do something that's a bit scary and a bit dangerous, and walk into a crowd of people that hate you and say the opposite to them. That's not an easy thing to do, and a lot of politicians are unwilling to do it. And so I think it's her political courage that means she's won some sort of following amongst the Australian public. Yeah,
I think that's right. I mean, the last politician, what's the last politicians we have with any real courage? I mean, Howard and Costello with the GST in '98. I mean, Hawke and Keating obviously were courageous with their economic reforms, but yeah, it's been a long time.
Well, the 2014 Abbott budget attempted.
Okay, true.
I thought it was a very stupid attempt because you go all in one way or the other, and he introduced a bunch of cuts that were going to be unpopular, and then he also increased tax just to make sure he could say, "Oh, I see, I'm hurting everyone." And then he did a couple of big handouts, I think in the hope that the handouts were so sparkly that they would like distract everyone and they wouldn't notice the cuts.
Right.
So I think you do cuts and handouts and tax cuts and tax increases. Just go hard or go home, right? But to be fair, it included some things that were courageous.
Yeah, right? You're right, actually. I forgot about that.
Right?
We tend to remember the success, because it wasn't successful, because that essentially, like, they couldn't get that through the Senate. It was seen as a political failure. So we kind of forget about that one, and we look back on the successful incidents of courage. But certainly that was courageous. I agree with you there, in part.
You could also make the case, I hesitate to do it, but make the case that Bill Shorten's going to an election on tax increases was courageous. I mean, it was stupid policy. I mean, we're in a productivity slump. You need less tax on investment. He wants to increase tax on investment. It's dumb, but it's also it's dumb in the way that insiders tell him it's smart, and it's not popular. So he did something that the Grattan Institute told him to do, but the opinion polls told him not to. So I guess in their world, that's brave.
Yeah, perhaps. Anyway.
The second part of this from RW is that housing is a basket case. I agree. True. So we need to have fewer people coming into the country, but we need that for different reasons anyway. But that would help to some degree. Look, my tax policy, allow people to save tax-free. That'll allow young people to get that deposit in quicker. But the main thing is you have to be able to build. And for that, there's actually a big debate there. We should do that another time, Gene, because we're running out. But there's the debate between the build-up and the build-out people.
I'd love to tackle that.
I have switched into a build-out person. I am pro-urban sprawl. I want to have more regional centers, more suburbs, more people away from the city. I don't want just everyone living in unit blocks. I think unit blocks and high-rises tend to undermine community, shrinks family size, going back to my pro-natalist instincts. People just have fewer kids when they're living in high-rises in the city. And they keep moving around so much that they never actually build any sense of community around them. So I think we're better off with suburban sprawl and regional towns. And another part of this is you're never really going to fix house prices if everybody insists they have to live within 30 minutes drive of the same 5 cities. Because there's only so high you're going to be able to build those properties. The properties are just going to go up and up. We have to have a system where people can live happily more than an hour's drive away from Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne. Regional centres, right? I think we need to do something to incentivize regional centre, not like just give people a subsidy, but as I said before, one of the things that drives up demand inside the cities is that we put all our public servants inside the cities.
Yeah, true.
What if the public servants were set up elsewhere? Another thing they have in America and the UK, a lot of their big universities aren't in London or New York. They're in small towns that are famous for the university. What if we set up these universities, especially if we've got 10,000 people flooding in to go to a university around St. Lucia in prime real estate in Brisbane? They're all flooding in there and renting properties, putting the rents up, therefore driving the prices up. What if instead those 10,000 people all went into a town that basically only existed to be a university? Firstly, would the students still come? And if not, were they really coming for the education? And secondly, it would have fewer negative consequences for the rest of us. Right? It would actually help that town boom and take away the pressure on Toowong and Indooroopilly and the suburbs around St. Lucia. But for people not from Brisbane, just around, say, UNSW,
Carlton,
all of the suburbs around there, or I don't know where the unis are in Melbourne, so I don't know the equivalent. But
Carlton, University of Melbourne.
There are steps that the government could do that aren't just I will subsidise you to live somewhere. But currently, I would say the government is effectively subsidising people to come into the cities, and they should stop doing that. They should stop taxing the bejesus out of cars and then subsidising the hell out of inner city mass transit. Right? That is a massive subsidy from the car drivers to the inner city people. I would say we should stop this government bias against cars, and that again would make it a bit easier for people to live a bit more spread out. And all of that, I think, would contribute to fixing the housing. Seven's in the chat if you agree. I don't know why people say that, but yeah, there you go.
Well, let's put it let's put it on the agenda for next week.
Housing, there's got to be some good excuse to talk housing coming up soon. And you know who we should bring on? Cam. Bring Cam back. Oh, Peter Tulip. Oh, we can invite Peter Tulip and Cam.
Although Peter's probably, we'd just end up agreeing with Peter. So maybe Cam's a good person to
Peter's a build-up guy. Peter's a build-up guy. I'm a build-out guy. So Peter versus Cam versus me would have 3 different positions.
Yeah, I don't know if Peter and Cam would be on the same stream together, but we could get. Yes. They've had some choice words on Twitter.
I'd imagine. Speaking of housing here, RW international students can study from abroad. Well, this is similar to my point. They could also study from, Wagga Wagga or Mount Isa. You could set these universities, and it doesn't have to be there. If you're in Wagga Wagga now and you disagree, don't send me hate mail. It could be a town that doesn't exist yet. You build a university there, and it's happened before. There are university towns across America and the UK. But yes, you could also just have them online. They don't need to be driving rents up. That is true. This is Darcy. We talked about this one already. Yeah. Yes, we have. I just highlighted it, and I came back to it. Anna, before, your friend, the one who was unimpressed with your immigration policy, says the state is the enemy. Very true.
Well, I think I've got the direction right. I just wasn't bold enough for Anna. I wasn't courageous enough.
Yeah, just like to tease you there. I don't remember what this is in reference to, but I agree. We could buy a foreign country. Or we could just invade New Zealand. No one's using it.
No, look,
set up an empire.
Come on. Cousins across the ditch or whatever it is. Yeah. So we love New Zealand.
Yeah, I love them so much we've imported millions of them already.
Oh, well, yeah, Brisbane's hugely popular with New Zealanders. Yeah, absolutely.
I suffer from Kiwi. I was born in New Zealand.
Ah, righto. Gotcha.
Don't tell anyone. That's for the 9,000
you don't have the accent,
people watching at home.
You're fine. We can understand.
I came over when I was like 2. I don't remember New Zealand. Yeah. I have no allegiance to New Zealand, but technically it's on my birth certificate. Here we go. Ancient Rome was destroyed due to giving barbarians citizenship. Have the hosts noticed what's happening in Europe? Yes, Europe seems... well, it's very hard to tell what's happening from this distance because you either get a very whitewashed or a very blackwashed version of it. But it does not seem to be trending in a way that I would be happy with if I was a European. I'll put it that way. And I'm not sure if ancient Rome was destroyed due to giving barbarians citizenships. Firstly, I bristle a little bit at the idea that us Germanic people are barbarians because that's who was being given the citizenship, Germanic people, the ancestors of the Anglo-Saxons. So, Gene and I are a little bit barbarian sometimes, but, we have some redeeming qualities as well. So, Rome could have let us in the door. It wouldn't necessarily lead to their decay. There's also a case to be, I'll get in trouble for this, a case to be made that here's the one I won't get in trouble for. They were debasing their currency.
Yeah.
So they were spending too much and they didn't want to, they were losing their tax base. They were losing their tax base, spending too much, didn't know what to do, debased their currency, and then people stopped trusting their currency. That's always a dramatically bad moment in any empire or civilization. And they were also stopped having kids. They were all living in the city, being debauched and libertine.
Yeah.
And they stopped having kids. They started getting older. It's one of the reasons their tax base started drying up. And they became an urbanized, feminized society that wasn't able to win a war without giving the Germans citizenship so that the Germans would fight the wars for them. So I think there was a step before giving the Germanic people citizenship that probably explains more of the fall of Rome. But that is a big topic. We should get an expert in history. Roman history. We've got so many things on the agenda. Anyone listening at home, if you are an expert in Roman history and you want to come in and explain to us the nuances of the collapse of Rome, one thing, and I apologize, segue upon segue. One thing I find very interesting about the Roman analogy is so many people look at the decay of Western civilization now. So many things I said before, spending too much, tax base is drying up, so you start debasing your currency. Looks like now, everyone living in the city, becoming increasingly urbane and libertine and feminized, kind of seems like now. As Helen Andrews would say, that is what woke was, the feminization of our culture. And then starting to let the barbarian hordes in to fill up your numbers so that someone can fill the gaps where we aren't having kids. So a lot of people point to the analogies with Rome. My question, and this is a question for everyone at home, but also for Eugene, are we currently going through the fall of the Roman Republic to be soon replaced with an empire, or are we going through the fall of the Roman Empire? Because there's two potential analogies you could take from this. There's two moments. Like if we're going through the fall of the Roman Republic, read your history. That's followed by 400 years of pretty solid empire. So that's not the collapse of Rome yet. The collapse of Rome was still 450 years away, 500 years away. So that's interesting. Are we going through that? In which case, what we are is we're about to go through an era of strongmen. Replace the dithering Senate with a hierarchy of strongmen, or are we actually seeing the entire collapse of the civilization? So that's a question for you, Anna, as well. You're the one referenced Rome and got me on this long rant. Any comments on that, by the way? Oh, Gene, you didn't answer my question, though. Are we going through the fall of the Roman Republic or the Roman Empire?
I think your analogy of the Republic's a good one. Yeah, perhaps it is the age of the strongmen. I mean, what I see is there's that dark enlightenment movement in the US, and maybe that's where we're heading. Peter Thiel and people like that are very much sympathetic to that view. I don't agree with it. I'm very much I still believe in democracy. I'm hopeful that we can get out of this mess, but every day that passes are perhaps less hopeful. But
yes, you and your weird democracy fetish. It's I don't think that democracy thing's going to catch on. It's
all right.
We've got a reference here. Everyone go out and buy that book. Apparently, I get no royalties, I should say.
Oh, you get
Where were we on
affiliate.
the lineup?
It's an affiliate, is it? You got an affiliate link or
No,
something?
I don't actually know. Aussie just put it up. I don't know who it is. It could be a terrible book. I'm just trusting in Aussie. Aussie, I'm trusting you here, so don't let me down.
I mean, Ray Dalio is obviously a bright guy, but yeah, one of these cyclical theories. I mean, yeah, I like to
I very
think we've
much
got
agree,
more
Lyndon.
agency. Subsidies need to be desubsidized. Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily a lack of agency. It's a set of incentives get set in play, and if they tend to create the same behavioral responses, then you've got a series of dominoes. I mean, it's not like the person who flicks the first domino didn't not have agency, but dominoes sometimes hit other dominoes. So I don't know. I like the saying that history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes.
Yeah.
I think there's something in that. This one, another one from Lyndon that just came in from our previous conversation. Regional town uni development would get a land rights claim straight away. Yeah, it might, but fuck them. I mean, excuse the language, but I don't know if we want to segue into Aboriginal land rights in this topic where we're getting up to what 920 in Queensland or 1020 in the southern states. My opinion is if you have government land that has an Aboriginal claim, just give it to them as freehold. Anything else that isn't government land, it's all just nullified now. There are no more claims. So that's it. Just push everything over to freehold. And if some of that land is currently government land and you can find an Aboriginal claim on it, just give it to those people. They can have it freehold. But if there's currently someone else with freehold, that's it. Everything is extinguished. There are no more claims. That's what I would do were I emperor. Once there's the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of the empire, Gene, that's what Emperor Humphreys will do. Yourself?
Yeah, well, you can deal with all the protests, John, when you bring that policy in. But we'll see. I'll see how you navigate that one.
No, I'll get Chris Minns to deal with them. Apparently, Chris Minns knows how to deal with protesters.
Right. Well, yeah, that was certainly very effective.
Thank you. I think this is a reference to Javier Milei.
Yes. Yeah, the Australian Javier Milei, John Humphreys. Yes. Yeah. Got to get the chainsaw, mate.
Well, I've got a chainsaw. I was just thinking, I got the wrong one. I got a red chainsaw. What the hell am I doing? I don't know what a red chainsaw is going to attack. What capitalists? No, I'm going to have to get a yellow chainsaw. That's right. All right. Okay. And Aussie says he's also not getting any royalties from the reference. But the reference again, in case anyone wants to check it out, The Rise and Decline of Nations, Ray Dalio. All right, we have just ticked over to over 10,000 people now, so I feel guilty for shutting up shop, but we have also ticked over to an hour 45. So I think we are getting to the point where we should wrap things up. We'll give people a chance to chuck in one or two last comments if they have something scintillating to say, and I will buy them only 10 seconds to do that while I ask you, Gene, what's your roundup? Any last comments, any last thoughts for the evening?
Well, clearly we're going to see what happens tomorrow. I think you're right, Angus Taylor will win. Will it save the Liberal Party? No. I don't know I know that the right of politics is not going to look like it has for the last 80 years or whatever it is. There has to be a shake-up, whether that's One Nation, whether it's something like a Malcolm Turnbull or Allegra Spender party that brings in a lot of the moderate Liberals and then wins over the doctors' wives and that segment of Australia. Perhaps. I just don't know. Everything's up for grabs at the moment. It's extraordinary time.
It is an interesting time to be watching the politics, and I juxtapose that to say it is a relatively boring time to be watching the policy development. And it's the same complaint I had all through last year's federal election. It's the same complaint I've had for a while. It's other than stage 3 tax cuts that more than 10 years ago now, that other than that, there's been very little policy meat to sink your teeth into. Yeah. From either major party, really, or substantive reform that is also good. There's been some substantively stupid reforms suggested, all of this climate malarkey and what have you. But there's the policy debate continues to disappoint, which is one of the reasons we are here, kind listeners. It's one of the reasons Jean and I show up here every week. One of the reasons the Australian Taxpayers Alliance exists, taxpayers.org.au. My last pitch on your way out the door. If you like what we're doing here, we do it for free, but we can't live on nothing. So we do hope that some people are going to go out and become members of the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. You can go to taxpayers.org.au up the top right corner, relatively cheap, couple of dollars a month. You can help us keep the lights on, or find us on Substack, where nearly everything on Substack is free. So I'm not trying to do a hard sell here, but if you want to help us continue doing what we're doing, there is an option on Substack to also join for either $5 or $15 a month. Your choice, dealer. So I hope you'll consider that. And even if you're not going to do that, please like and share what we're doing. Send it around the algorithm so that the algorithm knows that this is the sort of material that people need to see. And please share this with other people, get this conversation going. If we can't get your money, maybe we could at least get you helping us to improve the quality of policy debate in this country. And it certainly needs an improvement. And towards that end, we do this every week. So the ATA sends out our weekly newsletter overnight, Wednesday night. You'll get it Thursday morning. And then on Thursday evening, Jean and I come here and do this Death and Taxes podcast, live streamed on X under my name, John Humphreys, on X, the Australian Taxpayers Alliance on Facebook, the Australian Taxpayers Alliance on YouTube, and on Jean Tunny's account on LinkedIn. And later we put it up on Substack and Rumble as well. So thank you for joining us. We hope you will join us again next week. And until then, stay happy and stay free.